Are you Team Captain America or are you Team Iron Man? On today's episode, we're going to put that to the test and challenge your ideologies because one of these guys may have been right and it's probably not the person you chose. So get your butts in the seats, pencils up. Class is now in session. Ring the bell. All right, class, welcome back to Society and Pop Culture 101. I am Instructor BK.
I'm Instructor Novacaine.
And on today's episode, we got a really good one for you. We are talking about Civil War, but not necessarily the movie Civil War, because I think we've all seen it. Also, spoiler alert. Um, but
Yes.
we're talking about Civil War in regards to what it would be like. Well, how it pertains to our everyday government. But we're going to get into Captain America. We're going to get into Bucky. We're going to get into Iron Man. We're going to talk about the Sokovia Accords. We're going to talk about the UN. We're going to talk about the US government. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to talk about whether or not Novacaine and I are Team Cap or Team Iron Man.
Spoiler alert.
And if you watched any version of this show, you already know.
You probably already know.
But Novacaine, how you been?
If we've ever talked about Marvel, if you're in my circle and we've ever talked about anything Marvel, you know where I stand.
Right. So let's jump right into it. So our first subject is Steve Rogers, codename Captain America. Comics debut, Captain America Comics #1 in 1941. MCU debut, The First Avenger, 2011. While it wasn't the first movie in the franchise, it is the first movie in the timeline of the MCU. Steve had no powers, no combat training, and no talent. To most people, he would be considered a weak nobody. Wanting to fight in World War II, he joined the U.S. Army, where he tried harder than all of his brothers in arms. After weeks of hard work and determination, it still wouldn't be enough. He was still reportedly told to give up and go home, as Steve was on the verge to be ousted. He had caught the attention of Abraham Erskine, the scientist slated to create the United States super soldier. Abraham noticed Steve's warmth, his will, and good nature, and decided that he was the one to receive his super soldier serum. Through a painful process, Steve was injected and became Earth's first enhanced human. From there, he would become America's best propaganda piece for World War II. Unhappy with his military-issued stage show, he would eventually break out and become America's first Avenger. Bucky, his BFF, would even become his sidekick. Together, they would make history by turning the tide of many battles for years. In a battle with Red Skull, Steve would be frozen in a solid block of ice and left in the ocean. Years later, he would be found alive by the organization SHIELD. Captain America was the poster child for the Army after he became the superhuman he was. And since we're talking about the government here, what we found out later in the MCU with Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, even though Captain America is said to be the first Avenger, he is not, in fact, the first person to receive the super soldier serum.
Right.
Which was very important to him, to his character. But going back and finding out that Isaiah Bradley was a thing goes to show you that our government, the government in the MCU, is just like our government, because Isaiah Bradley was experimented on, right? I know I didn't bring this up, but we got to talk about Isaiah Bradley to talk about Cap. Isaiah Bradley was experimented on, I think, against his will for the most part, because he was also a part of the Army, which that also happens in the comics. So if you can find those comics, I suggest you go read them. But it was mirroring the Tuskegee Airmen and how they were experimented on by the U.S. government too, and covered up. I mean, these are the type of things our real life government does as well, like all the time. So to see it represented here in the MCU is pretty cool. Also, for the fact, just on a side note, yes, the MCU is political. It's always been political. Marvel Comics has always been political. You just ignore it because all the flashy shoot stuff that be going
Mm,
on.
not
But
flash, flash. Shoot, shoot.
shoot, throw a shield.
Shoot,
Oh my
shoot.
God, Caps is awesome. You know.
He just
So
did a
what?
flip.
Whoa! The whole time, this man, the first thing Captain America did in the comics was what? Fight Hitler. So it's
Mm-hmm.
World War
Sound
Two.
about right.
So
Sound about right. Mm-hmm.
anyway, what's your thoughts on Captain America? It, like his first movie and how it pertains to the government. What are your thoughts on that?
So I've always, you guys always go into that conspiracy side, but I've always had like this inclination that the government is always testing, always doing some type of test and things like that for real life. So when I first saw um Captain America: The First Avenger, I was in like shock, like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, like this could really happen. It could really happen because one thing I know for a fact when it comes to America, they are going to do whatever they need to do to be at the top.
facts.
In World War II, America wasn't even a part of it at first. So it's like, oh, let's of course, MCU. That's also one thing that I do like about the MCU is how they take real life events and like mush it into their fiction.
Yeah.
And um so when he got the super serum and everything like that, of course I was very excited, because it's like,
Hmm.
oh, we got a one up. But when you look at history, it's like, why were we even a part of it at the same time?
Right.
Why were we a part of it? And then uh Captain America becoming the super soldier. Well, I'm sorry, Steve Rogers becoming the super soldier that turns into Captain America. It was just basically a one up for America. So
Yep. And the fact that he was the biggest propaganda piece in the history of the MCU's government. Let's see, he was touted out as being this patriotic piece of the country. He wasn't really fighting. He was just this waste of money. He wasn't even, I don't even think originally he was supposed to be a part of the war in the MCU. I think he was just, they did the experiment to say that they got it,
mm-hmm.
just on a
Right,
contingency plan.
right.
And then they just used him in their media, in their stage performances and on tours. And he was getting bored with that. But that's how the government could work sometimes. Sometimes they just have you
You
to
just made
use
me
you
think about something.
later. What's
Mm-hmm.
that? What did I make you think about?
When you said the propaganda was a huge thing in World War II. I remember being in school and when we were learning what propaganda is and things like that. And World War II was like, it basically was like, in this country, this is what we're seeing. In this country, this is what we're going to see. And it's like whatever your government wanted you to believe in, that's what they were going to give you.
Historical complex. Complex.
Yeah.
That's not what I meant to say. In the
Context?
historical context, even in comics by itself, they were even using the propaganda too. Like
Mm-hmm.
comics boomed when Hitler was on the cover because
Mm-hmm.
America's first, and here's Superman punching Hitler, here's Captain America punching Hitler. Like that was the thing at that time. So to see that mirrored in the MCU was kind of cool because that's exactly what they did. They made comics, they made the Uncle Sam photo with Captain America. They used him
Mm-hmm.
to promote the war as being this great good thing for America. We're the superheroes and we have a superhero that can do all these amazing things. And that's why our boys are going to win the war, you know. So to see that being represented, but then understanding that there's a hidden history in it was kind of cool, which was Isaiah Bradley being experimented on and then just arrested. And then Cap got pushed out there. And now
Yeah.
he's the Captain America because ain't no
We don't
way
have no
some
black man out here.
black man gonna be the face of America.
We
Absolutely
ain't
not.
about
Not
that.
in
No,
World
nah,
War II.
not during no World War II. We just
No,
we just making y'all officers. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, from history, in the U.S. Army and the Marines and all that things, to become a officer, like your lieutenants and your captains and your colonels and things, Black people weren't allowed to be in those roles up until World War
hmm
II.
you had, just like in real life, this one experiment after it became popularized. Because again, for years apparently they had already been doing it, but once Captain America Steve Rogers became popular, that's when it boomed, right? So when something booms, it becomes the norm. Now Cap Super
Mhm.
Soldier is the norm. And when things become the norm, that means everybody else wants in. And then throughout the MCU, there's a history of people and Marvel Comics as a whole wanting to make the super soldier serum for their country or
Mm.
a weapons program close to that. In the MCU, you got what, the US agent toward the end there, which Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it also goes into Isaiah Bradley. Um, Nick Fury possibly has super soldier, a piece of it. Um, Dum Dugan, all of them from like the early days, because they were still young in the modern MCU. So they possibly all have super soldier serums. If the X-Men ever show up, guarantee you they probably got it. They probably tried at some point. It's a few other characters. The Winter Soldier,
Yep. Bucky Barnes.
Bucky
Bucky.
Barnes, and then in Civil War there were five more because Howard Stark created, like I said with the Bucky timeline, part of the timeline. Howard Stark also created super soldier serums.
Oh,
When Bucky went in there to attack Tony's dad in that car, that's what he was retrieving, was the super soldier
super soldier
serums
serum.
that he created. So there's five more super soldier serums that was made.
Mhm.
Um, Canada had the Weapons X program. We ain't seen a
Mhm.
lot of it, but we know Wolverine exists in the MCU somewhere. So there's that. So
Ooh,
I
that
just
might
say
be
to say
something for
this,
Deadpool 3. That might be something we
possibly.
might see. Possibly. Possibly.
Yeah, so even in our even in our world, when innovation is made, everybody wants a piece of that innovation, for better or for worse. It's a technology that's out. People are going to make copies. People are going to steal information, just like it happens in the MCU, and it's going to snowball into a world like, I don't know, say the internet and how out of control it is. But this is where we are now. And let's talk about Bucky a little bit. Subject: James Barnes, codename Winter Soldier. MCU debut, The First Avenger 2008, comics debut, Captain America Comics #1, 1941. Bucky, a name derived from his middle name, Buchanan. Bucky is the best friend of Steve Rogers. They became close during their time training to fight in World War II. He fights alongside Captain America as his sidekick. After Steve disappears, Barnes continues to serve in the military. Eventually, he will be captured and brainwashed by Hydra to become the deadly assassin Winter Soldier. He would also be forced to take a super soldier serum created by Howard Stark. In 1991, he would locate and steal the super soldier serum being transported by Howard. He would lock horns with the Avengers, meeting back up with Steve. When the United Nations is attacked, he became suspect #1. So
Okay.
Bucky in Civil War was a catalyst for the fight between Tony and Cap, right?
Mhm.
But Bucky, who was also a super soldier from Cap's time, um, I don't know if he really played, if he was really that important of a piece, honestly. Because when you, I mean, for the main storyline, yes, but for the aftermath of it all, the Sokovia Accords is probably enough to even cause half the backlash, half
Mhm.
the infighting. Because yeah, he was a part of splitting up the Avengers, but really though, you take Bucky out of it, do you really care? Do you care? Does it matter?
Okay, so For me, it was always because I always looked at it as Bucky being like kidnapped from America to be used for whatever, right? That's how
Mm-hmm.
I always looked at it as, like, they use Bucky as basically a pawn.
Yeah.
And that's how, they were able to get all of these missions done on their end. But
Yeah.
when
On the
you
Hydra
when
end?
on the Hydra end, but
Okay.
when you say it like that, I don't know. Now you got me thinking. Like, does he really make a? I mean, other than him killing, um, him unaliving, uh, Howard Stark and the mama, he killed the mama too, didn't he?
Yeah. What is Tony's mama name? Because I don't remember. It's probably
Damn, what that
Martha.
lady? Not Martha.
It's Martha Stark.
It better not be no freaking Martha Stark. I'm about to Google it. but but now you got me thinking, because outside of Captain America's story, where does Bucky really fit in?
Distraction.
And the government is big with that.
Facts. And
The government is big with that.
even though he may have not been a US government distraction, he was still a distraction and they still use that to their advantage. Everything that happened within Civil War and beforehand, because it's all snowballing, right? From the older
Mm-hmm.
Avengers events, it all played into their hands to make the Sokovia Accord a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if Bucky fits in anywhere, I would say that would be the best part, other than the emotional state of Tony Stark himself. Um,
So I just Googled it really quickly. And you was close. It's
what
not
is
Martha, but you got the MAR right.
it's Margaret.
Is Maria.
Maria. Oh no, I was gonna say, please don't be Margaret. That's weird. Okay, my
That would
grandma's
have been
name
way
is
too weird.
Margaret, but that's a black woman.
Yeah, but Margaret is also Peggy's first name.
You're right. I just said that to my daughter too. I was like, hey, that's my grandma's name. Peggy, which is a part of this conversation we're not talking about. She's unimportant for this topic.
She's
Love
unimportant for this
Peggy.
topic.
Love
She's
Peggy.
unimportant. Unless we talking about what if or something, but we talking about Civil War. Love Peggy, but
Straight.
like
Yeah.
by Civil War, she's out of there. Sorry, Peggy.
Yeah. Let's talk. What about Iron Man?
Subject: Tony Stark, code name Iron Man. Comics debut: Tales of Suspense number 39, 1963. MCU debut: Iron Man 2008. Excuse me. Stark is the playboy, billionaire, and philanthropist of the Marvel Universe. He used to spend his money on building weapons for others, but after being captured by the Ten Rings, successfully escaping and defeating his former partner, Obadiah Stane, he immediately defunded the weapons program. Nowadays, he's funding the Avengers. Nowadays, he's funding the Avengers or one of his many armors. Since then, Tony and Steve Rogers have gone into countless battles and building trust as members of the Avengers. But their battle with Ultron and Thanos has left devastation across the world. After talking to a parent who lost their son in the destruction, Tony has a change of heart about how the Avengers should operate. This decision made him call up Secretary of State Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Together, he and Ross proposed the Sokovia Accords.
I know we're going to talk about whether or not he's justified later, but for Iron Man's part, my man met up with that one lady. I forgot her name, but she walked up to him and said, "Hey, my kid passed away in the Battle of Lagos. Logos, is
Oh,
that how you say it? Logos?" It was
Legos.
Alfred Woodard that played the
Alfred
role.
Woodard, yeah, character. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if
I
she
forgot
was
his
named,
name.
but that right there, and the fact that of what Scarlet Witch showed him at the beginning, I think all that played a part in his mental state.
So for me, it always has been really hard for me to believe, like even when I go back and watch the first Iron Man movie, it's always been hard for me to believe that Tony Stark had no clue that his weapons were ending up in the wrong hands. So that's another thing that I've always uh, connected with our government too.
Mm-hmm.
We lend out weapons. We, as America, lend out our military.
We're doing it right now.
Right now, it's happening right now. It's probably been
You
happening for the beginning, since the beginning, but I know for a fact it's
yeah.
been happening my entire lifetime.
Okay, so let me
And
just say this: Ukraine and Israel, and only for historical and factualities right now. Am I saying that this is in not a criticism or anything like that, but we are selling them weapons. We are
yeah,
not selling. We are giving them weapons
hmm
to wage their battles and wars right now. So there's the
hmm
thing. Continue. I'm
that is
sorry.
a thing. That is a huge thing. So that's something that I always like connected with the real world. But it was always hard for me to believe that Tony was at the top. You know, he's basically his dad at this point, and he
Yeah.
didn't know that some of these weapons were ending up in the wrong hands. So for him to get attacked when they were in the motor V or whatever, and for him to get attacked and he almost blew up by, well, no, it did blow up, and it said Stark
Yeah.
Industries on there. So like, I really like how when he was put into that situation, how it made him feel, and I really, 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 really appreciated, his character, like saying, "We're not doing this anymore." Like when he got out of that cave and they did that press conference, we're not doing this anymore. I don't care how much money we making off of it. I don't care what this government is saying. We're not doing this anymore. So
Facts.
that
And
was like
I like how you pointed that out because that was a very important part of his character.
very important, very important. Iron Man's character, when you really look at it, is definitely like a key point to the entire Avengers, especially MCU.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, he's basically funding them. So
he funded exactly. He's the papa.
right.
He's the rich daddy.
I look at it like Batman and Superman in this scenario. We
Mhm.
all know that Batman is funding the Justice League to a degree,
Right,
right? Other and the
right.
government, they also that's the difference between the Avengers and the Justice League. The Justice League is a lot more tied to the government than the Avengers
Mm,
is.
mhm.
Um, but Iron Man is a private citizen and he can use his money for whatever he wants to. And he uses his money
Right.
to fund the Avengers. And so that was the very Batman like part of him. And
Mhm.
then you have Captain America, who is the de facto leader because he's so moral, because he has all this war experience. They're like co-leads, but if I was going to ask somebody for their advice in the middle of a battle, I'm going to Captain America before I go to Tony.
I'm going to Doctor
Just
Strange.
like, yo, Doc, could you go ahead and do that memory thing and see where we headed, right? But you got to hit the earth. That's this is the Ursha. That's the Ursha move, ain't it? Watch
No,
this.
no, that's what he does when he opened
I
up the
know.
eye.
I'm just saying it's the same thing. It's the
Watch this.
same
It's the
thing.
same thing. It's the same thing.
Is Usher
Watch
Doctor
this.
Strange?
Don't you start. Don't you freaking start. Don't you start, young. Because listen. If there was somebody to be Doctor Strange in the real world, I don't think it'd be Usher. I don't think
Yo,
it'd
think
be
it'd be Usher. That's off subject. We can talk about it later. We talk about it later.
Usher.
Um, but yeah, like I was saying, Superman and Captain America kind of had the same role. People don't see them as the leader, even though they technically kind of are.
Mhm.
Because let's see who, when you go in the middle of battle, who calling the commands, who hitting the
Mhm.
Optimus roll out in them battles is usually Captain
Mhm.
Superman,
It's
you know?
Captain.
And they
Before the
literally
battle,
wearing the colors of America,
bingo bongo. And, before the battle, Captain America's always giving this speech. You know?
right?
I
I
remember
don't know who.
in Endgame. I just watched, that was the most recent I've watched. I just recently watched Endgame, and it always tripped me out right before they do the time heist.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Lang goes, "Oh my gosh, that was so good." He said he's really good at that, isn't he? Captain America, Optimus Prime, two fictional characters
Yeah,
that make me go and want to go in battle. Like,
for real. Like I'm not like keen to be the soldier type, but if Optimus or Captain America tell me I can get in this fight and win it,
I'm
I'ma
doing
believe
it.
him.
I'm gonna believe it. It's just so good. It's just so good. But you're so right. Captain America is definitely have been the leader. No matter what anybody wants to say about it, he has been the leader. Before Civil War, we already saw like Iron Man and Captain America, like most of the time they would agree on things.
Yeah,
Most of the time they would agree on things. And I think it's because not only were they co-workers, they were actually friends.
true.
And when you really actually have that friendship with somebody, I do believe it's a lot easier to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But when you start putting the job in between the friendship, that's when everything changes.
And I think that's why when the Sokovia Accords came up, it was such a big deal because here you have Tony, who is seemingly anti-government. And now I don't understand every nuance and every type of political party and ideology, but
Mhm.
Not Cap, Iron Man seemed to be more of I guess, a libertarian in a sense, where he
Hmm.
believed that some government oversight should be there, but there should also be private people doing certain things.
Maybe, but I kind of still feel like Scarlet Witch did something to Tony to make him feel that way. And then with him having that conversation with Alfie Woodard's character, that like put the icing on the cake for him.
But even if we go back to like Iron Man, what was that, 2 or 3 after the first Avengers movie,
Hmm.
when that big battle came, what was the who were they fighting? I can't remember right now. It's just slipped my mind. But anyway, after the major battle in Avengers 1, Tony had the whole PTSD thing going on.
Yeah, it was a
So
lot going on for him.
when you start and this is what's cool about people in general. Once things start happening to you, it starts to change your mindset. So and I think
Hmm.
that's the important thing the MCU is probably trying to tell us. Tony, before all this stuff, he was the playboy, he was party, and he still did some of that stuff. But
Hmm.
the more he realized he was actually mortal, that he is
Hmm.
battling alongside of gods. And once he noticed that his mind and his technology can only take him so far, he started to get scared. And he started to roll back
Hmm.
some of those things. And that bravado started to peel off of him. With
Hmm.
Cap, on the other hand, he's the opposite of that. So when things get tough, remember in the beginning of his movie of the first Avenger, he was getting beat up in an alley and he got up, skinny, scrawny, no
This
muscles,
all
nothing. Was like, I could do this all day. And that has been his motivation all the way through the
all this time,
MCU.
this entire time. I'm tired of hearing the line. Honestly,
I'm not. I
I
be in
just
the
saw,
movie
and I
like,
also just
I can
watched. I
do this
also just
all day.
no, 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 because they gone too far with it. Because Doctor Strange in Multiverse of Madness, Peggy said it because she's Captain America in the other universe, and it's like, bro, that's not your line, and
Hold on, hold on.
that's why it made me mad. That's why it made me mad.
In Peggy's defense,
Okay,
she was still with Steve Rogers though. And if
okay,
her character is the one from What If, that was a bit tragic on the Steve Rogers side for a minute there. And depending on where they're taking her character in the MCU from that timeline,
oh, okay.
wherever her character is on the timeline,
So
she
it's
could
like
probably
one of
have
those.
lost Steve at some point.
So it's like one of those like when you in a relationship with a person and y'all say like the same catchphrases type thing.
Yeah, yeah. So
I
I
get
give her a
it.
pass on that one. I give her a slight pass, a
Okay,
little
okay.
pass.
I wanted to fight a little bit, just a little bit.
You're like, that ain't your line.
That's not
Say it
your line,
again.
and it's
Say it
crazy
again.
because I knew it was coming. Like I knew it was coming, and it's like, please don't say it. But it's like, oh damn, she done said it.
So
But
so are you gonna be mad when Falcon says it? No, I'm sorry. When the new Captain
Captain
Sam,
Falcon,
I be wanting to call him Captain Falcon so bad.
so bad, so bad. Call him
It just
Captain
sounds like
Falcon
it'd have
so
been
bad.
cooler. It would have been cooler.
I
Captain
like
America is
Captain
a cool title, don't get me wrong, but Captain Falcon, also Nintendo probably would have sued. But anyway.
Nintendo would have definitely sued, but still, if Sam says it, I don't think I'd be too soft. I don't know. I don't know. It depends. It really truly depends on the match that's happening,
Yeah.
where it is in the movie, and everything that's going on. So maybe I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
Let's talk about the Sokovia Accords now. Because
Oh, there was something. Dang, did I forget? Did I forget what I wanted to say before the Sokovia Accords? I did. Yes. So before we talk about the Sokovia Accords, there's one thing I'm gonna say. Do you think that if Ultron actually became what they wanted to be, which was the security of the world, instead
mhm,
of being a mad AI robot,
yeah.
do you think they would have even had to have the Sokovia Accords?
Hmm. If we go back to Doctor Strange, Ultron did become in that one reality they slipped into where the Marvel's Illuminati was running the
Mhm,
show. So we seen that they it can work,
mhm,
and we seen that it can work smoothly.
mhm.
So do I think if it came about and Ultron actually was the security of the world, would the Sokovia Accords be needed? Probably not.
Probably not, because what put the icing on the cake for that was, of course, the attacking Legos. I hate to say it like this. God forgive me. I don't hate to say it like this, but this is another thing that just goes right back into the real world. A black country, they didn't really they did too much after the Legos attack, but when Ultron was ready to turn Sokovia into a bomb, basically,
Hmm.
that's when they was like, "Oh nah, call them inventors in, call them
You're
in,
right.
call them in."
But they do the thing that they do in real life too, because they use the black victimhood in that sense to actually bolster to uplift it even more. Because the one thing that they said a lot was the 11 Wakandans that got unalived in that attack.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the most prominent black people in the MCU. Let's just say it that way
Fact.
because it kind of is.
It's a fact.
And you had the person with all this money, all this power come to the UN to say, hey, y'all got to do something because I just lost 11 of my citizens. Do you care? And then it didn't matter because they got blown up. And then T'Chaka passed away, which involved Black Panther, which also is not a part of this main argument right now.
Imame,
Wakanda forever, though. Wakanda forever.
Wakanda
Um,
forever.
but that's how Bucky gets involved, right? Because Bucky
Yeah,
is blamed for it, and
because he was brainwashed.
but this is after the Avengers finds out that the Sokovia Accords were a thing that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So
So they
let's
trying to
get.
vote at this point. They trying to vote on it and try to figure out which way they're gonna go.
I think so. If I'm remembering correctly, that's what happened. Subject: Sokovia Accords. The Sokovia Accords were a set of legal documents designed to control and regulate the activities of enhanced individuals, including members of government agencies such as SHIELD or private organizations such as the Avengers, established by the United Nations and ratified in 2016 by 117 countries. The Accord served as a legal response to international concerns over unsanctioned actions and consequences by enhanced individuals and members of the Avengers. It should be noted that the Sokovia Accords were discontinued in the MCU in 2025, I believe. Our sources here is the Marvel Cinematic Universe fandom.com. It's the Marvel Wiki. So always cite your sources. Don't forget that. When the Avengers found out about the Sokovia Accords, they found out that they didn't have a choice that this was happening. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so The
because your
one thing
government
I
is going to try to govern you no matter what type of person you are.
you're on
Whether
American soil.
you're American soil, whether you're superhuman or not, you're still an American citizen, and we're going to govern whatever you do, no matter
And
what you can do.
before you say, well, they often go outside of that to other countries as well. These countries, like we said with the Sokovia Accords, 117 countries signed on. So that means 117 countries are a part in the MCU are a part of the United Nations. There's probably
Right.
hardly anywhere the Avengers could go where they are not affected by the extended arm of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're being real here, we are like the top of the UN.
Mm-hmm.
When people say we're the world police, they're usually also talking about the United Nations
Mm-hmm.
because we kind of use historically we have used the United Nations as basically our extra. When America can't go, we use the United Nations to make it look better, to make it look like we're not a part of it. But in reality, we kind of are.
You are.
And if you need a historical context or somewhere in our real timeline, in the real world, that says that's basically probably true, look no further than Vladimir Putin.
Pew.
He basically Putin, pew, pew. Vladimir Putin. He's basically been saying this whole time, which is why he doesn't want certain countries. What was it? Denmark? Was it Denmark that he was trying to keep away
I'm
from
not sure.
joining the UN? It
I'm
was
not
one
sure.
of them countries over there, but it's one that's close to him, so he didn't want
So
that. That's
It's a European country.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's why he was fighting so hard to stop that country from becoming part of the UN because the more the UN encroaches on his side of things,
Yeah, exactly.
he's like, that's just the United States.
Exactly. And I
Um,
think people, and like you said, people don't think about like being governed. Just like in real world, right? There's sanctions we have to abide by because some countries just don't agree with other countries, or some countries don't want people to come visit, or whatever the case may be. This is why we have these traveling visas. You know,
yeah,
we have to do all of these things before we even go visit these other countries. Like some countries is maybe easier than others, but some aren't, and that's just the way
facts.
it is. That's just the way it is, unfortunately.
And you ain't never seen the Avengers use a passport.
They don't need one.
Exactly. So if we're
If I was
thinking
an Avenger.
so if we're thinking in terms of the government and the governments of the world, they're like these
Mhm.
people are unchecked. We don't want America showing up in our country without us knowing. And lo and behold, we
Them
have
Americans.
Captain America showing up, who
Watch
is an
it.
extension of the United States. No matter how you look at it, he still carries government sanctioned uniform. He wears the
Mhm.
flag, people. Uh, government sanctioned shield. His sidekick is a part of the military. Captain America has a military rank, by the way, but I think Captain Marvel may outrank him. I think she
In the
does actually.
military,
Yes,
possibly.
I think she does. Um, then you have Falcon, the
Mhm.
new Captain
In the
America,
military.
who also is in the military. Then you have Rhodey,
Rhodey.
who is
Rhodey
most
was a
who
lieutenant, right?
definitely, I think so. I think yeah, he is. He's a lieutenant
Hmm.
who is definitely a
No.
part of the military.
Yes. No. Yes. Did he get a promotion to colonel or something? A
He
major
might
or
have.
something?
He might have now, but at that point, I think he was still Lieutenant Rhodey. So you had all these people, Black Widow, who does work for the military from time to time. She worked for Shield. Shield is a part of the military, a secret part of the military, but a part of the military nonetheless.
Mhm.
Um, who else? Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. So you had these three people who are part of the military people. So it's like every time the Avengers show up somewhere and they were uninvited or they skirted the law to go to these places, it's an international problem that the United States has the United States have to worry about. They have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about it. They have to go and say, we didn't send them. We'll pay for the damage if Tony don't. So it's like when you start stacking up stuff, it makes sense why the Sokovia Act is actually valid.
Mm-hmm. He's a lieutenant colonel, by the way.
Okay. So also, Rhodey outranks Captain America.
Rhodey outranks all of them if he's a lieutenant colonel.
I know. I'm just saying, like
You're like a
everybody
couple of
outranks
steps from
Captain
general.
America.
Everybody outranks Captain America. Everyone. But they taking the shots from him.
Not in the Avengers though. In the Avengers, Captain's still at the top. So
That, right? You see
I
that,
say
right?
that to say this. That was the pros of the Sokovia Act. The con of the Sokovia Act is the government knows every superpowered being, so they are
Mm-hmm.
at the behest of the United States government and the UN, which puts them at the behest of a whole lot of people. And at that point, they are directed guns
Mm.
under the United States first, though. So you already had Cap, a superpower being that has to go to war when war calls, right? If the government reinstates him to do so. And then you got like everybody else that can go. So that's a con. That is a con if I have ever heard one.
Mm-hmm.
And now they know who you are. They know who your family is. They know all your cousins, all they friends.
BK, chill.
I'm just saying, when you really start paying attention, that's a
It's true though.
dangerous
It's dangerous.
thing.
It's very
We hate
dangerous.
that now. We are upset right now that TikTok is a thing. The country, they're upset that TikTok is a thing because they're taking all of your information, right? The counter argument to that, is so is Facebook,
So is Facebook. So is Google.
so is Google, so is
My phone
any
is listening to
app.
the conversation right now.
Apparently, in this, on another side note, Netflix and Facebook had been using your information, all your DMs. Netflix pays Facebook for that. So if you send a DM on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram,
Instagram,
Threads,
rap.
they got all that information on you. They probably making a movie about your relationship right now. You don't even know it.
Right now. Right freaking now.
You gonna cut
Right.
on Netflix and start crying like, oh my God, that's just
Think
like what
about
I'm going through.
think about all of the group chats or messenger chats that has gone down in history for the past, because Netflix, I mean not Netflix, Instagram has been around since what, 2011, something like that, 2012,
Yeah, it's
2011.
it's been a while.
It's been a minute now. It's been a minute. So think about, oh, we didn't have Messenger on Instagram at first though. It took them a
You're
while
right.
to add an inbox on Instagram. But anyway, think about that. Facebook's been around since 2004, 3, something like that. I don't know. But just imagine how many people have talked. How many users use Facebook at this point? A couple billion?
Yeah.
It gotta be in the billions. It gotta be in the billions. It got to be.
Imagine, imagine if all the superheroes was using Facebook, and now Netflix know they all superheroes.
Now Netflix know they're superheroes. Now Netflix knows they're superheroes. What if I'm telling my deepest, darkest secrets through Messenger? Now Netflix got my deep, dark secrets.
Oh, they know. They know. They already know everything. But anyway, that's another subject for
I used
another
to
day.
talk to you about a lot of deep stuff on Messenger.
This is fact. Right now, Netflix know every time you sent that meme that you was trying to hide from the pastor. Netflix knows. Netflix
Netflix knows.
knows.
But I just don't understand our government with that. Like, it's been so many things that they can vote for and agree on. And this is one thing that they agreed on. Something's fishy.
Of course.
I don't like it.
Of course it is.
Man.
But I think this goes into our conversation. I'm gonna bring it back around. Voting is important in these scenarios because you don't know the emotional state. I mean, you can't know everything all the time, but your politicians has an emotional state. They have an ideology, and when you sit at home and you decide not to vote, and then something like I don't know, your internet is at risk because it's at risk every day. Your
Mm.
TikTok is at risk. Um, how you
Abortion,
move
abortion
abortion is
laws.
at risk. All of this stuff is at risk because at some point we decided that things are going to go whatever way they want to. Mind you, whatever you're against, and I just want to point this out. This is not a Democrat versus Republican argument here, but the Republican Party has not been in the majority, but they are still able to do whatever it is they want to do.
Ain't that crazy?
Affirmative action, uh, abortion, all it's been on the chopping block, right? We
The
still ain't
TikTok
got no gun laws. TikTok is all on the chopping
still
block
ain't got no gun laws. Inflation
because
is still wild out here.
people like Tony Stark has deep pockets, and when their emotions and their feelings are hurt or things happen to them, they use their money to move policy. Tony, while they may not have said it, you're not telling me he was not at that point when Tony brought in Thunderbolt Ross, he became a lobbyist for the Sokovia Act. He became a lobbyist. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't know the basis, the building blocks of how what it takes for a law, but a lot of times the lobbyists are what's really driving the politicians. So you have to
Yep.
find the politician that's gonna be like, I'm not listening to the lobbyists, I'm listening to the people. And if we don't vote the correct way, this stuff will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the correct
I
way is to
mean,
vote with your what you need, not what the
yeah, what you need, what makes sense to you.
yeah.
Um, I've said this a million times by now, but the House of Representatives, they're old. Like, I don't want to seem like an ageist or bring in ageism, but like, let's be real here. When you get older, a lot of people get stuck in their ways. Their
Facts.
mentality is not the mentality of these children of today. Like,
They don't even
how can they?
understand they don't even understand how the world works now and it's changed.
Bingo. They can't even send a fax, barely an email. So where do you? Let's not
Their
even get
aides
on
are
the
doing all
PowerPoint.
that.
Let's not even bring out the PowerPoints. Like, how are these people voting against something or agreeing? I'm sorry. How are these people agreeing to try to get rid of something that's not really hurting? How is it hurting us as a country? How is TikTok hurting us? I know how it
It's
is.
it's not hurting us.
It's not. It's
It's
hurting them.
hurting yes, it's hurting how they want to frame the war and the Israeli Palestinian war. At this point, most people will concede that it's a genocide. A lot of people are waking up to
Mhm.
that fact. But this also goes back with why the MCU is very important because, like I said earlier in the episode, into this topic, like I said earlier in the episode, the United States has an agenda, right?
Mhm.
The UN has an agenda.
Mhm.
Whatever the agenda of the UN, it goes against the United States agenda right now, and the United States is like veto that, downvote that. And they will still get their way.
Mhm.
So, and that's what it seems like in the MCU because the only people we see actually making arguments for the Sokovia Accord is the United States, and their power and their influenced everybody else to roll with it.
Yeah.
Now, what do we know about Thunderbolt Ross? If you ever watched a Hulk movie, once that man gets something in his head, the ideal is there. He is gung ho to get it
It's
done.
gun
Whatever.
ho. Mhm.
My man's used all types of taxpayer money to take down the Hulk.
Mm. And
Was he
did.
right for it? Probably. Is the Hulk destructive? That is his nature. So yeah, I can understand it. So
Mhm.
the the thing about the Sokovia Accords here, though, is how it split the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some sided with Cap, some sided with Iron Man. And I was assuming all of the people that are military would side with Iron Man because he was in the government. They have orders to follow. Usually, soldiers are trained to follow orders no matter what.
So the only person that was in the military that didn't side with him was um Sam.
Falcon with Sam Wilson. Now, the thing about Sam is, though, where did he spend most of his time? Who was he with most of the time?
With Cap.
The influence was there.
The influence was there. He understood his vision. You know.
He understood the vision, and he also knew. And this is me speculating, but this is the cool part of the MCU. You kind of speculate things on people by what they do in other situations. And if you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, you know that Sam's upbringing is black.
Super black.
He probably saw the dangers of the Sokovia Accord and the impact it could have on his community.
Bingo bongo.
I think that's probably important. Um, I feel like I wish Spider-Man was already in MCU before this movie because his story in the comic book would have been the most impactful, but we didn't have that luxury at this point. Because in the comic book, Spider-Man kept his identity to keep his family safe. The moment he took that mask off in Civil War, everything fell down around him. Yeah, he was getting paid by the government. Yeah, everything was great at that point. But the aftermath of that, which is the snowball effect of him unmasking himself, put his family at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, in the Back in Black series, Aunt May gets sniped, sniper rifled by
We knew what it meant.
I know I just wanted to make the sound effect.
Golly.
By a mercenary that was sent by Kingpin. Kingpin didn't know who Spider-Man was, but once he found out, he was like, go ahead and take that shot, bruh.
Go handle that.
So
Go
I'm
handle
saying
that.
war and laws have consequences and sometimes unforeseen. Nobody knew Aunt May was gonna get shot, but it happened. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Oh
so
God. Oh
we're
God.
coming down to the part. Okay, so just to round out what happened with the rest of the movie,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, the Sokovia Accord was signed into effect, right? Superheroes split. Cap argument was we're putting lives in danger by signing this. The
Mm-hmm.
superhero lives are in danger if we sign this. And they're an important part of this. And not only will their life be in danger, but also the government could tell us what to do. And that's a lot of power to go in the government's hand, knowing that out of everything the government has done, go back what we talked about earlier, experimenting on people before the super soldier serum, hiding things from the citizens, all those type of things that's happened in the MCU, shield falling. Um, and now we know that there were aliens among us. You put all that power in the MCU. They didn't know that at the time, but still, snowball effect. You put all
Snowball
that
effect.
stuff, that's dangerous. So, in that sense, that was Cap's argument. Iron Man was like, it's dangerous if we don't have oversight. If we can go wherever we want to and do whatever we want to, what happens if somebody goes rogue? I mean, the Hulk always goes rogue. But point is, what happens then? What happens if we have the government behind us? We can go into these places. We can have more resources. And he was probably thinking we always don't have to send us in because we have the army too. So
Mm-hmm.
those are good arguments to have, I guess. But that's their line. That's their line. We save more lives by being a part of the government. That's Tony's whole ideology. And then he found out that Bucky killed his parents. And
And then
then
that's how the whole story just changed. Like the whole movie just changed from
all of that,
the
all of
entire
that kind of
movie.
went out the window at that point.
Everything went out the window at that point. Like, forget them Accords. You got to see me. You got to see me, bro. I don't care who you are.
And it looked like my man was coming along to Iron Man. I mean, the Captain America side too. He was like, maybe Cap is right.
Maybe he was. He was.
I was
He
wrong.
really
It wasn't Bucky.
he started you so
He
right. He
saw
started
he's
understanding what Cap was saying. And I think that
after
if he didn't find out that news, maybe they could have like tweaked the Accords or something. I don't know.
yeah, so he found out that Cap was right about Bucky, which made him question everything else because it wasn't Bucky that did the crime of blowing up the UN. It was Zemo
Zemo.
disguised as Bucky.
Hmm.
But that does not mean Bucky's not control because he did catch control of Bucky, but that's a whole nother side plot right now.
Whole another side plot.
So after
The man when
so
they get to
now
fighting.
so now we are on my favorite part of the debate. Captain America versus Iron Man. Okay, that's enough
Oh,
of that. All
okay.
right, Captain America versus Iron Man.
Hmm.
Who was right and who was wrong?
I'm with Kat. I'm sorry. Like, I am a rogue type of person. I am one of those people that wants to go against the grain. I never agreed with the Sokovia Accords because I did not want these superheroes to be governed. I felt as though if you have a gift, you should share it with the world. Simple as that.
I'm Team Cap, but full disclosure, I'm always Team Cap.
I'm always
But
thinking. This is a fact. This is a fact. BK. This is a fact. This is a fact.
I had a whole Captain
Always.
America chair, right? It
I was
died,
about to
but
just ask you what happened to it.
it died.
Aw.
I miss it. I miss it. But I'm Team Cap, but I'm also Team Anti-Sokovia Accords.
Yeah.
Uh, given the fact that the government, while necessary, can't always be trusted. I guess in this regard, I would be more of a centrist in this way of thinking, because there are some oversights that we need as a people. The people
Yeah.
perish if they don't have directions and rules. And the best way to get those directions and rules is by having a governing body. And when it works right and works for everyone in the correct way, it can be amazing. But when certain ideologies get involved and then certain personalities are too strong, say your General Thunderbolt Ross, who is probably going to become president sometime in the future of the MCU, things can get a little wacky. And I don't want the Sokovia Accords a part of that because Thunderbolt Ross, because he was Secretary of State, so with his amount of power and influence, having a Captain America plus two Iron Man plus a Scarlet Witch plus a Vision, the Hulk was gonna be prime target number one. The man is still got. You're not telling me he ain't got a heart on for the Hulk right now. He still does. So that was gonna be his primary objective, and we probably see that in the Thunderbolts movie in the future too. Anyway, so
If
I'm Team Cap for that
Team
very
Cap all the
reason.
way. Team Cap all the way. I'm Team Cap for his ideology for anti-Sokovia Accords, and I'm also Team Cap for keeping the secret away from his friend.
I think if Tony really wanted to know, he could have just found that out.
He could have found out. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it was like not a need to
We're
know basis, but like,
for reference, we're talking about the fact that Bucky was the person that killed his parents,
yeah.
unalived his parents.
And that's Cap's best friend. So it's like, I understand why Tony wanted to see him with the hands after that. I completely understand why. But I also understand Cap keeping that away because he knows Tony's an emotional person. He
Yeah,
knows how what Tony has been through and how his mind works. So he didn't want to like bring that in and make their relationship even harder.
yeah.
And then all the Sokovia thing, all the Accords was going on, and it's like, bro, I can't let you know right now. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think Captain America handled that as the 30-something-year-old he actually is.
Yeah.
I know he's older than that, but mindset wise, he was frozen for a long time, people. He's 30 something.
He
Um,
is 30 something.
and if we put
Why
him
is that?
against the
Why
rest
is
of
he
our
crazy?
generation, this is exactly how we will handle that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it's the death of a parent. This is not someone's cheating on you that you're not married to, or this is not somebody stole some fries out of your bag. This is my friend who was mind controlled,
Was mind controlled.
un- unalive your parents because he was sent to go do that.
So
We're
in
talking
the
about
kill to
Tony,
the mom.
impulsive Tony. Tony was automatically gonna shoot him with a pulsar ray right off the
There it
top.
is. There it is. And then I always think about like if Howard wasn't transporting this super soldier serum that night, would he had perished? You know, like if Howard had somebody else to transport it or left it at the lab or whatever, had he really perished?
Obviously, Howard didn't trust the government either
Bingo bongo. There it is.
because why? Why was he even transporting it
Why
in
was
his
he in his
sedan?
sedan in his personal car with his wife?
Like they was going to the
Why?
movies that night or something.
Why? There it is, BK. There it
Hmm.
is. Now you got me. Now you got me over here wondering. Now
Are
you
we
got
on
me
the
over here
MCU?
wondering.
Are we on the MCU conspiracy theory now?
There it is. There it is. Because why was he? And I want to say, was it a what if episode that I watched with Howard Stark in it? He said something. I cannot quote him directly, but you can tell that he did not trust the United States government all the way.
Oh
You could just
no,
tell.
absolutely not. The only reason a lot of the stuff, quick, quick homework moment. If you haven't watched Agent Carter, I suggest you go do so. It's a very
How,
good, it's a very good show. You can tell it was like 2009, 10, 11
okay.
on TV. You could tell you could feel that. But also it has one of the original human torches. The original human torch
Oh,
is a point of contention there a little bit. But anyway, you will see in regards to Howard, you kind of see his ideology a little bit. Where he became the serious, jaded man that he kind of is when we see older Howard versus him being younger and energetic and inventing things to push the world. We don't get to see that part, but we get to see a bit of his building blocks, even with Jarvis, who was his butler and alive at the time.
and alive.
So definitely go watch Agent Carter if you haven't. It's a good show. Good show. A bit campy, but still good. Um,
Copy that.
I think that's all I got though, for real, because
I think
I
that's
think
all
we
I got
covered
too.
everything.
We did.
We did we do a good job today? I think we
I
did.
think we did. I think we did. He's so stupid, yeah. Something not right with you. He's so not. So,
Y'all, listen. The people, the class don't know how much of a struggle these past couple of weeks has been for both of
listen,
us on the different levels here.
listen, listen. Like podcasting. You already know podcasting is my heart, you know. But baby, it's been a struggle. Okay,
Man,
life altogether has been lifing, you know.
agreed. I'm
But
tired right now.
it just means that a huge blessing is on the other side. That's it.
Good thought.
That's
Any
it.
closing thoughts on Cap versus Tony and how the government operates? Any closing
Captain
thoughts?
America was right.
Do you think a more controlled version of the Sokovia Accords could work?
Maybe. They
I
would
mean,
have to tweak
technically,
it
we
a lot to me. In my eyes, they would have to tweak it a lot.
I would say Shield was basically the Sokovia Accord. Basically, you already had Shield,
Basically,
but they got infiltrated. So your
real
government still can't be trusted in the MCU. Not only did Hydra infiltrate Shield, but the Skrulls infiltrated everything.
That secret
Which means
invasion.
they probably
That secret
infiltrated.
invasion had, baby. That secret invasion had my eyes wide open. Okay, like.
So after I went back to watch Civil War 2, in regards to Secret Invasion, that is definitely the moment that Rhodey had to be taken.
It had to be when
That's like the only
got
moment
shot out the sky.
when he got shot out the sky by Vision, by the way, who is one of the most advanced AIs ever created, still failed to realize that Sam had skills and and shot his own man's.
Shot his own man's.
Which is a person that everybody was hoping would be on the other side of this argument, but really, it wouldn't make sense to. Tony basically is daddy.
That's
Tony
Tony's
is
first
his
child.
daddy. Right? Like, of course he was gonna side with his father. But anyway, we gotta end this. So, class.
Thank you for coming on by to another.
No, you go ahead. You were there. I'm in it. Go ahead. Do your thing. I'm listening.
Thank you, class, for coming in for another class. Thank you, class, for what was I about to say?
I don't know. All right.
I wanted to say another
episode, another lesson.
Another lesson. Thank you, class, for coming in for another lesson. I'm your instructor, Novacaine.
And I'm instructor BK. Cite your sources. Like, share, and subscribe.
Please and thank you.
Thank you for listening. We out. I didn't put my cream on today.